Welcome back to the Autism Life Hacks Podcast. You tuned in for our first official episode outside of our intro. I am your host, Shawnee Eskridge,
I'm Terrence and Eskridge.
and we are back with this week's episode of Autism Life Hacks. We want to be discussing fall break, but we definitely cannot start until and unless we thank you guys for tuning in and rocking with us on our Patreon page, for everybody showing your love and support on Instagram, and for those of us that have been rocking with us now here on SoundCloud. Please know that we are getting everything together for the Google
As
Podcast.
and iTunes, we're getting everything set up to get started there soon.
So we're working diligently to continue to be on all podcast platforms and bring you guys the most sufficient content we can.
Yeah.
And we hope that you guys will continue to rock with us. And so we're just grateful to be doing this podcast and sharing a bit of our lives with you and introducing you to people all across the spectrum. So, in preparing for this week's episode, we had some time in between the intro episodes and this week's episode because we wanted to give you guys enough time to really comb through the episode. And we're definitely thinking about you guys when we're not here on the podcast. And this week, we definitely wanted to talk about the end of fall break. But coming into fall break, there was so much going on. The month of October is a very special month for us. And it's a very special month for us because October 2nd is our wedding anniversary. And this year we've been celebrating 10 years.
It's been
Um,
amazing years.
yes. So for couples out there that are on the spectrum like us, and you know, we we don't often hear stories like ours, which is why we're sharing this on the podcast. Just know that you guys definitely can make it. There is hope. We hope that you will continue to listen to the podcast and maybe glean some of what we've been able to do to make our marriage successful on the spectrum. And you can also tune in to our Marriage Minutes series and episodes and podcasts also on Patreon to get a little bit more advice specifically about marriage. But it's just been a wonderful week. Terrence surprised me with a vow renewal, and he got our entire church involved, our entire core family, and it was just so beautiful because it was everything that I needed it to be 10 years ago. And just to look up and see, you know, everyone that I loved and needed there in that moment be there, and just knowing that you put that together. Because I think that I know definitely in our marriage there's been some back and forth about your ability to be romantic and what part Asperger's may or may not play in that. And I think there's a stereotype that goes with it as well.
And I think there is.
Well, I didn't want to speak for it, like for you, but it just, from the things that I've seen and read, there's a stereotype that, that I should expect you to be rigid and not really be able to step outside yourself. And I understand that there are some people on the spectrum that have a more severe uh, version of the Asperger syndrome or of autism. And so I know that it's not necessarily true for everyone. But I think if I just keep it real, like when I don't get what I want immediately, it can be a little bit, I can get to feeling a certain type of negative way.
Hmm.
And you really, really just surpass my expectations. And so just coming into fall break off of that high, has really been all the difference for me for this fall break, I usually don't come into fall break with a bad attitude. I don't think, but this fall break was definitely different from the ones that have preceded it, and I just wanted to publicly thank you for, just giving me that, coming into fall break, giving me that extra energy that I needed to really be here for the kids. But I think my allergy meds probably tried to take that from you, man. Man, Zazal is nothing to play with. So, but but in my heart space, it's been really, really good. So, how have you been feeling coming into fall break? Because I know we play, two totally different roles in fall break.
It's been real busy and hectic for me because there was doing everything to prepare for the vow renewal and keeping it secret from you, and then um, catching up on backlogs of work and making sure I still got to work and spending time with the kids. So it's been and then them because they've been home with you all day. Now they feel like they have to make sure they spend the same amount of time in my face. And I don't mean that sounded pretty badly, and I don't mean it in a negative way, but I mean they directly want to spend that much time in my face
Man,
physically.
they not playing. They, man, look, phones ain't got nothing on their FaceTime. Do you hear me? So they serious about you, and I love the way that they love you.
Yeah.
I love the way that they miss you, and so happy to see you when you come home. I'm just happy that we're fortunate enough to have that dynamic in our family, and I'm happy that we came together to do this podcast so that hopefully by sharing some of our story and our testimony, maybe we can help another family, you know, rebuild and repair, um, or strengthen, what they already have so that they can have that too,
Hmm.
and I hope we can be a source of light and good news in the world for that. And speaking of good news, um, before we came back for this podcast, because for those of you that have been following us since the debut of the podcast, you'll notice that there's been some significant amount of time between the intro episodes and today's episode. And that's because Terrence and I really wanted to take some time to really develop the show for you all, really figure out what type of content we wanted to get out there to you all and make
Hmm.
sure that we were living up to what we said we would bring you guys in those first two intro episodes, which you can find on the Patreon homepage. All episodes are free. We do have tier packages, so that you guys have access to uh, ticketed events, merchandise, our toolkit that we've put together to give you resources for you to use in real time in your home.
Hmm.
And so we wanted to take the time to just make sure that everything we said we were giving you guys in those first two episodes, that we were, holding true to our word. So this week we start out with two small segments that we wanted to make sure to share with you in each episode, which we right now believe will be bi weekly, right? I think that's what we
Yeah, I think
agreed
that's
to.
where we're at.
So you'll be receiving two episodes from us a month on Patreon, and you can go to our Patreon to check out those two tiers that we have available for you. See what all we're putting together for you guys, because it's really, really amazing. And so we wanted to give you guys good news on this podcast. And so, for us being believers of Christ, we know that the biggest good news is that, Jesus loves us and He's here for us. But we also wanted to give you good news from the Word and good news in the world, the good things that are happening in the world. So, I'll let Terry, you started off with the good news from the Word.
Okay. From Jeremiah 1 and 5. I knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb. Before you were born, I set you apart and appointing you as my prophet to the nations.
I love that verse. I love that verse. I actually have it highlighted in my Bible app, and I have it bookmarked under what I call autism promises, because when I tell you, like, there's a very real element of our walk for me that I just know that certain successes we've had
Mm-hmm.
as a special needs family, I know that I attribute them directly to God answering prayer. You know,
Mm-hmm.
just praying about, you know, you and Jackie and your mind, and just how you perceive the world and how the world receives you. And if I'm honest, as a mother, um, there is this element of, was it my fault? Did I do something wrong in the pregnancy? Um, was there something that I missed, a vitamin I didn't take, or food that I shouldn't have eaten? You know, because there's just this unction where you just want to save your kid from any and every bad thing that could happen. And then switching over to the wifely role, it's like, well, I've been being this way as a wife all this time without knowing that he has Asperger's. Do I, have to change who I am and how I am and what I do, to accommodate you as a wife? Does this mean that there are certain things as a wife that I won't have access to just because you have Asperger's and you can't do it, you know? Um, so it's like those things come across my mind, and verses like these help me to understand and feel like God is like, no, I knew what I was doing when I put the two of you together. I knew what I was doing when I allowed you guys to conceive Jackie. I knew what I was doing when I said that this is the path that you guys will testify from in life. And just to know that God has a plan, and it's an intricate plan, because this word says, before I formed you in your mother's womb. Like, we all consider life to start at the point of conception, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in this text, God is clearly stating that there is something that is happening before that. There's clearly a conversation, a relationship that is happening before that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He's like, there were things going on before the womb between you and I. And so just to know that God looks in that deep, you know,
Yeah.
right? It's like, if God's got it that far back, if his history with us runs that far back, the younger kids now say, I mess with you the long way. Right? And it's like, God is like, no, nobody has a longer history with you than me, not even your own mama.
Mm-hmm.
So for then me to be like, what did I do wrong? God is like, no, this is not on you.
Yeah, and I always hate hearing people think that way. What did I do wrong? About what did I do wrong? What could I have done differently about their child and their special needs? Because, quite frankly, more often than not, there's nothing they could have done differently. It's just that's the way God made them, and that verse actually says that they made them that way for a reason. And sometimes that reason is not known to you, but sometimes you see it later on in life. Because I can never remember the name of this movie, but we watched it before. It had hmm, it had I forget her name, but she was in Waiting to Exhale. Uh,
Angela Bassett,
no,
Loretta Devine.
yes,
Okay.
she was she it was her and somebody else. They
Alfred Woodard.
I think so. They were sisters and didn't know it. that was raised together as when they was kids, and they thought they was cousins,
Mhm.
and but they was actually sisters.
Yeah, I remember where you're going with this. Yeah,
And
that
you,
was your favorite scene in the movie,
yeah.
where they find out for sure that they're sisters.
And she said, I prayed she was my sister. And she's like, but I don't think that's the way it works. She's like, well, no. She's like, just because I prayed for it now don't mean God didn't make it happen before I prayed for it.
Right. Yeah, that is a very special scene, and I do see where you're going with that. It's like God knows what He's doing, and even if we can't see it in the time in which we're praying for it, it doesn't mean that God hasn't already worked it out
Mm-hmm.
just because we're unaware of it. And even in this text, He says that I set you apart. He gives a why. He says, I set you apart and appointed you as my prophet to the nations. And I can even see that happening like with this podcast, just being able to take our story
Mm-hmm.
and really share it with hopefully what will become nations of people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where being being able to talk about life on the spectrum isn't such an odd thing or even a taboo thing
Mm-hmm.
or something where we feel free to speak. I want to see us not uh, be so isolated. You know, I want to see a life and a time where it's commonplace to be walking through the grocery store and be able to identify another family that's, dealing with spectrum specific issues and um it not be hard to walk up to them and offer help, and it not be hard for them to receive it,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't think that we go through anything that we go through just for ourselves. Like, I don't think, and I think this text backs me up that it's not a coincidence, you know, that we go through the things we go through, and we definitely don't go through them for our own sakes. That the things that we go through, we are meant to share, and it's why I appreciate like our Facebook groups that we're a part of. These aren't groups that we started, by the way. These are groups that we found as a support for ourselves,
Yeah.
and that have really like rallied around us and supported us. And I know, especially my local group on Facebook has just been such a light and just really been a source of strength and a safe place to vent and to not feel alone and to find resources. And I'm hoping, like, as the podcast progresses, that I'll be able to bring some of those women on and share them with the rest of our listening community, because I think between our two groups, um, we've definitely come across some phenomenal people
Yeah.
in our support groups, and I'm hoping that we can share them with our podcast listening community. But that brings me to the good news in the world, because there are some phenomenal people on the spectrum in the world, and one of those phenomenal people I learned about in my Facebook group, but this person I don't know personally. I just read his news story inside my group, and his name is Montel Medley. He graduated this year from Towson University with a 3.6 GPA, and he's an awesome, awesome kid. Well, young man now. He's definitely not a kid, but but he graduated with dual degrees in mathematics and computer sciences, and he started out. He was diagnosed at the age of 3.
Yeah.
At the age of 3, and he graduated his high school as valedictorian, and then he went on to Towson University, and his story stood out to me because he was about to flunk out. And I
Yeah.
remember how in the intro we discussed what your college journey was like,
Yeah.
and or your first go around at college, because you are now
Back in
back
school.
in school pursuing your networking degree and or your networking certification. Is that right? Is that the
Yeah.
correct terminology? So yeah, and it just really gave me, you know, high hopes. He comes from a single family home, a single parent home. His mother is Miss Roberta Medley, and even when I shared the story with you, you said there were some things that stood out to you.
Hmm.
What stood out to you?
Just the fact that she, his mother, just always stood out. She stayed with he was gonna have to pull himself up and work, and that he didn't, that he couldn't, that she just wasn't gonna be a hand holding his hand and living holding him like he was completely disabled and everything. That he said that she told him he was gonna have to do his own work and stuff. Like she's
Yeah, she told me he was going to have to shape up. I remember
Yeah.
that.
She said when he came home from college and was failing that first semester that he was gonna have to shape up and ship out. And that's that same type of mentality, like not giving leeway, saying something like, "Oh, it's too bad. You have problems. It's their fault, not yours." That just because we're a little different doesn't mean that you have to treat us with kid gloves all the time.
Yeah, I believe that too. I do. And I walk a fine line, and I related to Miss Roberta because the article talked about how she felt guilty in the very beginning.
Hmm.
Like, what if she did something wrong? And I know I still experience guilt when it comes to Jackie, because I know that just in my natural demeanor, I tend to have a harder outer exterior. I'm really soft on the inside. Don't like really admitting that part, but I do. I'm real pink on the inside, but on the outside I have a kind of hard exterior just because of the environment I grew up in
Hmm.
and what my circumstances were coming up. And Jackie is the opposite. She's very jovial, and she's um a believer that anything is possible. She can be very cautious, specifically with me, but with everyone else, like, she is just the light in the darkness. And so um I don't want to handle her with kid gloves, and I feel guilt sometimes because sometimes I wonder if I'm coming down too hard on her sometimes, or if it's like I can't win for losing, because sometimes I wonder if I'm coming down too hard on her. Other times I'm wondering if I'm handling her with kid gloves. Um and so to find that balance, I feel like is very difficult. And if any of you out there are listening and you are having trouble finding that balance, like, leave a comment in our comment section, please. Like, tell us your experience with trying to find that right balance, and how you get over the guilt of trying to find that right balance, and how did you get over the guilt of wondering whether or not it was anything that you did wrong.
Yeah.
We really like to hear back from you guys. But Miss Roberta was like, you know, she knew that her son was capable, and she just gave him gentle pushes. And I love in the story, and to um we're gonna leave a link to Montel's story in the description, so you guys can go and look it all up for yourself and see it for yourself. Or you can just Google his name. His name is Montel Medley. So I love that when she saw that he was. I love, number one, that she checked in on him every day when he first started,
Hmm.
but then she did a little bit of a pivot, and she decided to kind of fall back and, like, just let him handle things on his own, because he is an adult.
Hmm.
But when she saw him starting to slip, she kept it honest with him and was like, if you don't get this together, you're coming out
Yeah.
of college. And I loved his response. His response was that he was just gonna get his stuff together. He was gonna rally, and he talked with his professors, and he was meeting his professors, during office hours. And long story short, he put in the work and he graduated.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he graduated this past May. And he had some job opportunities lined up from what we read. So you guys go look on the Washington Post. Like I said, we'll leave a link in the description. And like I said, shout out to Montel Medley and his mother Roberta for you know pressing past and not giving up just with the diagnosis of autism.
Yeah.
And not only did he graduated with 2 degrees, y'all. So I think that that's awesome and amazing. It really speaks to what our loved ones are capable of doing with the right support, and with parents and teachers and community members working together, with our loved ones that
Yeah.
are seeking higher education. So I think that that's amazing and I love it. And I hope that, we get to hear and see and read more stories like that. But we're going to take a quick break, come back, and get into our main topic, which is fall break. You are listening to the Autism Life Hacks Podcast. If you are enjoying this free episode, please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. Then leave a rating on your preferred podcast platform. We also invite you to become an official life hacker by joining our official Patreon community. As a patron, your support gives you exclusive access to offers on merchandise, event tickets, counseling services, as well as knowing that you're actively helping us to connect families to resources that empower them to live their best lives on the spectrum. Thank you for listening. Now back to the episode. So we're back and we're discussing fall break.
Hmm.
And as we stated at the top of the show, fall break for us it's normal in our household that I'm usually the one home for fall break. Terry works. What's your official title at FedEx?
Um, it's changed so often. Like just technician level 2. Just yeah.
So yes, Terrence works as a technician at FedEx, and he does lots of important techie things at FedEx. And and so while he's off being the tech genius that he is, I am home with the girls. And um, I I try to feel out what is necessary for fall break. And to be quite honest, I'm usually a little rigid. In the past, I've tried keeping them busy. I remember last year for fall break, I had the girls and my brother and my nieces at the Memphis Public Library every other day of fall break
Yeah.
for just all types of activities that the Memphis Public Library hosts. Shout out to the Memphis Public Library for like putting together really cool programs each and every year. I know I had the girls at the program during this summer.
Yeah, I think I had them at the zoo one day too.
Yeah, like I had them at the Memphis Public Library every other day, and then like in the middle of the week I took them to the zoo last year because it happened to fall on the first Tuesday of the month, fall
Hmm.
break. And the first Tuesday of the month, if you're here in Memphis, if you're listening to us here in Memphis, the first Tuesday of every month is free day at the zoo. So, like Monday we were at the library, Tuesday we were at the zoo, Wednesday we took a break because I knew it was gonna rain. Thursday we were doing something, and Friday we were back at the library. So
Yeah.
like it was a cram packed week. And but that was last year. This year was a totally different vibe
Yeah.
though. um I knew that The kids have been testing. I've been doing a significantly increased amount of driving. Right now in our family, I'm the one responsible for transporting all of us to our separate destinations each and every day. So I knew for fall break, like, we all just needed a break. And I knew Jackie had been testing, and um, our baby girl, she's been having to get up early in the morning, and that's been hard for her.
Ooh.
So, like, we all really just needed a break. And I think you even needed a break in the sense of um, you haven't really getting alone time. You
Mm-mm.
know what I'm saying? So, correct me if I'm wrong, but that car ride to work has has that been beneficial for you at all in any way?
No, to be honest, because I'm driving, so my concentration is on driving and being safe while driving around a bunch of crazy people. So
Well, there's
it's
that.
it's not like I'm relaxing. So
Mm, okay. I just, I just, I don't know. I know when I'm alone in the car, I like sometimes I can pray and I can meditate and I can get my mind together about the next place I need to be and the next thing I need to do and the task at hand. So I was hoping maybe some of that was, happening for you. Do
uh,
you think it could happen for you?
I don't know. I wish it's more along the lines of me having to be extra careful while I'm driving for just because of say just because of the simple fact that I haven't, driven in a while because of not being able, not having my own car to drive because you've been driving this everywhere. So I
Right.
have the experience has been
Yeah,
dropping.
being down to one car, like, y'all, we've been really feeling it. So, but to be able to take a break from driving, because, like, in addition to driving everybody else, I've been driving Lyft and Uber Eats. So,
Hmm.
like, when I say my driving has increased, it has increased, and I needed a break. I needed to sleep in. I needed just really warm hugs just, and a blanket. so and I needed just um the way it worked last year was just not gonna work this
Hmm.
year. And the funny part to me is I still tried to come into this fall break like, y'all still gonna study, we still gonna be doing work, especially with the baby girl, because her teacher sent home like this whole fall break homework packet, which for the little one is necessary because attention spans, and you want to make sure that their brains are still fresh when
Hmm.
they go back to school. But I knew that that wasn't going to work for Jay because the week prior to fall break, they had been testing. And in addition to like all their other homework. And what is hilarious to me is we've been trying to work with Jay about like what books not to bring home and what school supplies to leave at school, and
Yeah.
she was still bringing everything home up until that Friday before fall break. I checked her backpack, y'all, for that Friday before fall break, and nothing was in it. Like, nothing. She was like, we're not doing nothing for fall break. Meanwhile, baby girl is like, no, I have a whole homework packet. I got to get this pumpkin colored. I got to do all my sheets. And so it's weird, but they've kind of had, at least academically speaking, they've had a completely different fall break.
Hmm.
They've had a completely different fall break. Um, and I was gonna be one of those moms that was just like, no, we're not sitting up and watching TV all day. We're not doing that.
Yeah.
But my body was like, no, that's exactly what we're gonna do. We're gonna sleep and we're gonna rest and we're gonna wash a couple of dishes. We're gonna teach them how to wash a couple of dishes, and we're gonna take walks in this cool weather and we're gonna paint nails and And that's that. Like we're not doing anything. And I would dare even say that academically speaking, even I have been on fall break. Like I hate to say it, but I haven't um been as zealous in my efforts toward my assignment for this week, and I will definitely be getting right back on that after this podcast. But but I've just I've just taken my time this week. I even had to give the word at church on Sunday and Tuesday, and my pastor always gives me a phone call before major words that I have to give, and like always comes in the clutch with the support and the guidance. But then on Tuesday, it was just me and God there, and it was an experience to have to give the word and then still come home and like have time and energy and space for us,
Yeah.
and to kind of turn Tuesday night into an impromptu date night. And it was fun. Um, but when Wednesday morning rolled around, I
Yeah.
was like no good to nobody.
Yeah.
So in that sense, like fall break like really really took effect definitely that next Wednesday. And like I put up, like we have a pin board in our house, right?
Mhm.
And it's like half pin board and the other half is dry erase marker. And I put up just all these different ideas of things that I think we might want to get done on fall break, and I just put them up there just so I'd have some type of reference point, because for this particular fall break I really feel like my brain has just completely blanked.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? Like my brain is not here for any type of structure, you know, anything like that. And I think Jay's brain was the same way. Like I think we were really on the same wavelength this fall break. She didn't want anything serious. I didn't want anything serious. She's been learning the recorder and the guitar at school. Um, she's having to be at school a little earlier on certain days of the week to get her lessons in.
Mhm.
And,
Yeah.
and like I said, she was testing the whole week before.
Yeah. I thought those tests were next week. Well, I'm glad they over with.
No, they're over with, man. And, you know, I was just like, I knew I was going to have to gauge in between, like, the activities I wanted to have planned,
Mhm.
engaging in between when to relax.
Mhm.
But now that we're getting closer and closer to the end of the week, I'm having to like prep for them to go back to school. So
Mhm.
like, all those supplies we bought from Dollar Tree, um, to help her with her visuals, as far as like what days she gets on the bus and what days she's a car rider and what days, she's got this going on, that going on. Like now I kind of have to get back into mommy work mode and like get all those things together for her to make her life a little easier as she goes back to school, and like helping her with those transitions, because I really don't want her to, you know, spaz out if something doesn't go just right.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that like the visual cues will work.
Yeah. She's doing pretty much better in that regard. But I don't know. I'm still iffy about this whole empty backpack, no homework thing. We'll see about that though.
I mean, I didn't, you know what? I'm not gonna lie. I really fell off for
Mhm.
fall break. Like, I didn't really check with her teachers either to see if there was homework she was supposed to have in her backpack for fall break. And I just kind of took it as a good sign that I didn't get any notifications on the Remind app from them either.
Yeah, I kind of just left it at that too, cause it's day break too.
Yeah, like they didn't send any, notifications on the Remind app. Whereas our baby girl's teacher, like, she let us know that homework packing coming home, do 2 pages a day, um, make sure to color the pumpkin. Then she texted tonight and she was like, tell the babies I miss them. I can't wait to see them on Monday. And I think that's great.
Hmm.
But we haven't heard anything from J School, so it was like, well, then there's nothing. I don't got nothing to worry about. So
Yeah.
so it's been that type of thing. I think it's just been kind of in the air that everybody needs a break this fall break, and maybe for Thanksgiving break and for Christmas break I can get back to being a little structured, but for this fall break, no, I'm good.
Hmm.
I'm good. Like, I drove nowhere but to my therapist in Dollar Tree. That's it. I didn't even drive to church.
Nah. Yeah.
So yeah. So now, as the kids are getting ready to return to school, like, just because we've taken the time to relax, y'all, like, that's still kids in the house vying for your attention all the time with no break.
I ain't drove nowhere, not even church. And
I didn't.
I'm over here like, you had me trying to church because you were trying to avoid that.
Yes, yes.
I'm like, I'm thinking, I'm, I'm thinking, I'm driving church because I'm helping you because you had to preach, and you got me driving church just because you ain't want to drive.
Well, it wasn't just because I didn't want to drive.
I know. I'm just messing with you now.
Really, you just gonna mess with me on the podcast. That's what you get. Ah. Now, as I was saying, as the kids get ready to return to school, I feel like fall break really begins for parents when kids get ready to return to school. Stop messing with me.
Never.
So,
I regret
that I regret nothing. Um, so it's like, but do you agree that parents go on fall break when kids go back to school?
that depends, cause I mean, it depends, cause if you got to time to break after the kids get back to school, then yeah. But if you got to jump back into your own personal grind, then no.
Man, look, I do have to jump back into my own personal grind when the kids go back to school. But I'm telling you, that car ride home before I change into my work clothes is everything. I'm turning on Ricky Healing music. I'm not listening to the regular radio, or I'm listening to affirmations, or I'm listening to, you know, thought changing podcasts, or heck, maybe even our old podcast, just to see what I can do better the next time. But I'm generally listening to something that is building me up and giving me confidence that I need. And I'm thinking about my schedule so that, you know, when you guys come home, I can be the most effective wife and partner and parent that I can be, because um all three of you need different things from me. And I want
Yes, all three of us need different things from you, but it's different things. But we all give you different things too.
what's that supposed to mean?
It means that yeah, while we all need different things from you, we all give out different things too. Like Kaylin give you more hugs and love than anybody in existence, to be honest.
Yeah,
But
baby girl got me on the affection. She do.
yeah, and Jackie gives you words of affirmation because when she actually gives them to you, they light up your world because she don't.
It don't be. It's not something I'm expecting. So yeah, she comes out of left field with that. But Jackie mostly gives me energy, and I hate having to tell her to calm down all the time. But baby girl be hyped so much, and it be over the smallest things. Like if she gets hype over one more commercial, whew, I can't sometimes. But and then there's you, and it's like I feel, and moms, I think y'all can feel me on this. Like, um, our job never stops. Our job never stops, and that is such the way with fall break.
Yeah.
But I would just encourage, parents as they go back out to the schools, as they return to schools, take that time that you need to recover. It doesn't matter if it's that car ride home. It doesn't matter if it's, you know, while you're changing the laundry or cooking the dinner, or like take your 10 minutes. Like, I heard someone say, the time, you're not going to find the time because time is not lost. You have to make the time for yourself. So I just encourage, parents, as your children are going back to school for fall break, um send them out the house with prayers. Pray for your kids, pray for these schools, pray for faculty and staff as they receive our kids.
Hmm.
Um, for those of us and our babies are on the spectrum, I find myself praying that our children be the light in the darkness, you know, that nothing that's going on around them affects the light that is within them.
Yeah.
And we pray the same thing for your kids. And we just thank you guys for sticking with us through another episode of Autism Life Hacks. We will see you guys back here again on your podcast listening platform
Yes. We'll
in
be ready, mother.
in 2 Fridays.
Yes.
We love you guys. We're out.